Another movie that maybe hasn't aged super well. Some people might say it's aged like milk.
Spoiled.
You've probably seen this movie though. You know,
Maybe.
women love this movie.
The Notebook.
Good guess. No. Okay. So there's this dude. It starts with another guy.
Is he a loser?
This guy isn't a loser. Well,
Oh,
depends how you
no.
look at the situation,
Uh-oh.
right? He's incredibly successful, high-powered corporate executive. He's successful at everything in life except love. Yeah, good guess. Good guess, right?
Can we just write movie scripts?
We could. So he's like all these women are really just arm candy to him for him to like
Trophy
show up
wives.
to corporate events and things like that. And the movie starts with this woman leaving him because clearly he doesn't care and invest any emotion or time into the relationship. She's just sort of a prop to him. So it starts with that. And he's in LA for these high-powered meetings. They're doing some mergers and acquisitions deal, taking over some other companies, sort of a hostile takeover. And he just needs a woman by his side to show up to some corporate functions. So he drives down Hollywood Boulevard and he finds a prostitute. And he says,
sex worker?
a sex worker. Is prostitute an offensive term now?
Yes. Was that the word used in the film, though? If it's older?
I'm sure it would. People really don't say prostitute anymore?
No.
No, okay. Okay, sex worker. He hires a sex worker for the week to just sort of not for sexual reasons, just to literally
Like an escort.
yeah, as an escort. Okay. So he's just pampering and spoiling this woman with things. He puts her up at his fancy hotel suite. He's buying her all sorts of dresses and things. He gives her his credit card and she goes to buy a dress and they assume she doesn't have money. So they like sort of turn her away. And it's like this moment where she gets to come back with all her money and be like, you lost that commission. This is ringing a bell.
Yeah.
This scene specifically
With
is
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Pretty woman.
Pretty Woman. You know
Yeah.
the name of the movie.
Yeah.
Do you know do you know the rest of the movie?
I can't remember. Like, she, at one point, gets assaulted by his friend. Was
So
it
his
friend?
business
His
partner.
business partner.
So the substance of the movie is she softens him up into being a bit more of a human being and not just like a ruthless businessman. Whereas his partner just sees her as a sex worker that he is just using as a prop still. And so the business partner, played by Jason Alexander,
Yeah, I
George
remember.
Costanza, does try to sexually assault her towards the end of the movie. And Richard Gere kind of comes to the rescue. Movie ends in a really bizarre, I find the ending of the movie pretty weird, where he's about to leave, his trip's coming to an end, and he's like, hey, I'll give you an apartment and an allowance, but I got to go back to New York. Maybe I'll come visit you sometime. And she's like, oh, like you're still treating me as if you're like paying me for my services. Whereas like she's really falling in love with this guy because he kind of gave her like this fantasy knight in shining armor, saving the sex worker from the streets experience, right? So she declines this offer and he's going to leave and he's headed for the airport to leave and he changes his mind at the last minute and climbs up the fire escape of her apartment and they kiss and like the movie just sort of ends that way.
So there wasn't really a resolution on.
Well, I guess the
where-
resolution is he's
direction.
choosing to be in a relationship with her, I guess. And the movie really leans heavily into the idea that like the sort of wish fulfillment of women in not good circumstances being rescued. Well, I guess you could argue she rescued him from being like a cold shell of a man. But I think there's a lot of like vicarious wish fulfillment of some rich, handsome guy comes along and plucks you out of your not so great life and gives you some fancy, extravagant lifestyle.
Yeah, it's like, thank you, men, for saving us women.
a little bit, right?
Yeah, I remember that was my thinking of the movie at the time.
This movie there's been a lot of discussion about whether this movie is like a terrible message
Yeah.
or
Well,
not.
it was also made a long time ago. I imagine if the same
1990.
1990. That was 2
1990.
years after we were born. Like we were tiny
This
babies.
is true. We were just a baby.
We
And I
were
feel like
tiny
a
babies.
lot of Julia Roberts' movie in retrospect was like her kind of playing like the troubled character that a man came
Yeah.
along and sort of accepted for all her flaws and sort of There's a bit of like a hero complex
I
to a lot
wouldn't
of
say
her
that
movies.
that's a Julia Roberts thing. I think that was just a main character.
That was a trope to a
that
lot
was
of
a
movies.
woman
And
in
she
that
was a
era.
leading woman.
Yeah.
She was like the biggest female
Well, she's an amazing
actress in the world.
actress, so she
Yeah.
does a really good job at communicating that like vulnerability, I think.
And she's played some like really more meaningful roles.
Like Erin Brockovich.
Erin Brockovich.
Yeah.
That's a good movie. Yeah.
But I remember, yes, I think that movie was supposed to feel like a lighthearted movie in a way. Like you're supposed to be like, yeah, girl, you go get that, new riches, but also like feel good about it or whatever. But I remember always not really liking it because ultimately it just felt to me like, yes, I'm glad that they're happy in the end and it was, a consensual decision, not just based on money, but money is what started it. And he did see her as inferior in the beginning, even if he changed his mind later. I don't know. There was something that always just made me a little bit uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies where like on a very superficial level, like you can just sort of enjoy it as like a bit of a fairy tale. And then if you think about it,
But like fairy tale,
at all?
exactly. That's why I don't like it. Because I don't like that it's like, hey, women, this is your fairy tale. You too, one day maybe can be lifted up by a man with money.
well, it's one thing like as children to like see stories about Prince Charming rescuing a princess from a dragon.
And then they become a princess because of Prince Charming or whatever.
But you're right, like as an adult watching stories that don't really go beyond that, I think is a little weird. But I mean, like sometimes you just want to watch something dumb too, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that movie was intended to be like a dumb, fun movie. I think they were thinking
They
this
thought they
is
were
a
saying
great
something.
story of women empowerment
It's
in
interesting.
1990.
People are still, I mean, we're talking about it right now when it came out 32 years ago.
It is a classic, and it will always be a classic movie, in part because of Julia Roberts' acting, I think. But yeah, 30 years later, you do kind of pick it apart.
I will say, like, it's interesting. There's way more stigma around like even the topic or idea of sex work back then too, compared to today, I would say, right? Not that there isn't today, but I just think like it was kind of just like universally seen like as a very stigmatized thing. There's no like OnlyFans celebration of female empowerment by like monetizing your own sexuality conversation going on.
But that didn't change the fact that 30 years ago, there was plenty of movies that depicted women sex workers in them all the time. Like, I mean,
is that true?
I just remember it like kind of being a thing, like, or there's escorts, or yeah, we'll just get you some ladies, come to the club. Like that just was not uncommon in movies like that, where there was corporate gatherings or mobsters or whatever. There was always like groups of women around, and you knew, and that's just what it was. So
of course, sorry, I guess I guess there were movies specifically about sex workers, strippers too. That was kind of a thing for a while, like striptease. What was that, Demi Moore? There was a while where they, maybe like inspired by Pretty Woman. It seemed like for a while there was like a genre of movies kind of like even about that. Yeah. All right,
you want to describe those? Would I watch it? I have watched it. Would I watch it again? Not unless I'm taking a sociology class where we have to write a paper on it.
Okay. Well, I guess you could just do
if
that
I
on your own
wanted
time.
to give some critical account in the year 22 about it, then I would rewatch it in order to, pull direct quotes and whatever. But I don't feel a personal need to rewatch it at this time.
That's fair.
You're not winning so far.
I'm not winning. I'm not winning. You're the one who's only guessed one right out of 4.
I mean,
actually,
like,
no,
to
you got Wonder Woman, to be fair.